start with that Alabama at Texas A&M game. Very interesting line movement here. Alabama opened as about a 5-point road favorite in College Station. As I record here late Tuesday, it is down to 2.5 points. The over-under set at 46.5. In other words, all of the money, all of the professional bettors, they are taking the Texas A&M Aggies at home. It is worth noting, by the way, these have been two very competitive games over the last 2 years. Texas A&M beat Alabama 2 years ago in College Station. And of course, last year it came down to the final play in Tuscaloosa. Big picture, one thing that I think is kind of interesting, and I put this out on Twitter on Tuesday afternoon, is I am curious how people will perceive this game, right? Alabama and A&M already have a loss. So if Texas A&M in theory is to win, does it become, both these teams are completely overrated? Who cares? They already took a loss in the out-of-conference. Or is it, and this is where I think it is, I think both teams are getting better, and I think the team that wins this game should feel really good, again, about being in control of the SEC West and at least getting to Atlanta. We could talk college football playoff down the road, but I think both teams should feel really good coming out of this game if they are able to get the win. In terms of these two teams, listen, I think they're both really good. And as I said, they're both starting to figure things out. From the Texas A&M perspective, I know that it has been all negative for the last 18 months in College Station. And I know that they got smoked in Miami a few weeks ago. But this has looked like a very good team over the first 2 weeks of SEC play, a dominant win over Auburn at home, a dominant win over Arkansas at Jerry World. And the thing that stands out to me about this team is something we talked about on Monday's Aaron Torres pod. It is the fact that this team and this defense, specifically those young guys, right? We spent so much time talking about that 2022 recruiting class. Then some of them came to campus. It didn't work out last year. You had some behavioral issues with some of them. Well, a few of them are gone, but the ones that are there are all balling out. And this has become an elite defense early in the season, especially along the defensive line. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about it. And again, I say this all the time. I'm not an NFL draft evaluator. I'm not a recruiting expert. But when I just look body for body, player for player, I think you can argue Texas A&M has as good of a defensive line and defensive front as anybody in college football. First of all, in terms of the defense itself, a top 20 pass defense, a top 10 run defense, but more than anything, this team gets after the quarterback at an insane level, okay? Texas A&M currently through 5 games, so we're basically at the halfway point this season, 49 tackles for loss. That is the third most in college football. By the way, 15 alone against Arkansas. Sam Pittman, like the Arkansas fans are melting down right now on Sam Pittman and on that offensive line because they could not keep A&M out of the backfield last week. Also 20 sacks on the season, which is also third in college football. And again, it's a lot of the young guys that came in 2 years ago in the 2022 class, some of the older guys. But I looked it up on Tuesday, and Edgerrin Cooper, a linebacker, and then Shamar Turner and Walter Nolan. How about this? 3 elite guys, all in the top 30 nationally in tackles for loss. So they have multiple guys that are getting after the quarterback. Then on top of that, I really think this offense is really starting to figure it out. And I know, again, we know what all the national A&M narratives are. Oh my goodness, how was it going to work with Bobby Petrino? How was it going to work with Jimbo Fisher? Well, it's working pretty well so far. And as a matter of fact, if you listen to Jimbo Fisher's media availability on Monday, he basically was gushing about Bobby Petrino. Now, Bobby Petrino has no say over turnovers, but Texas A&M on the season, a top 35 total offense and a team that is putting up close to 38 points per game. Remember, this was a team that didn't score 40 points in a single game all of last year. They are averaging 38 at nearly the midway point this year. Texas A&M, listen, I know they have critics. I know this is a good team. They're coming along. Don't believe the narratives. Trust your eyes. Trust Torres. This is a really good football team. From the Alabama perspective, I'll be blunt. Listen, where Aaron was right. I told you 2 or 3 weeks ago. Remember all the quarterback drama and the quarterback controversy and what does it mean? This guy started, then this guy got benched, and then this guy started. And what I said was, when they went back to Jalen Milroe, this is football 101. Again, you don't have to be, whoever. You don't have to be Louis Riddick or Troy Aikman or Greg Olson to figure out. Alabama figured a couple things out after that South Florida game. Offensive line can't pass block, but the defense is really good. And the best chance they have is to give the ball to Jalen Milroe and let Jalen Milroe make plays with his feet. Don't put too much on his plate. Don't put too much pressure on him, the starting quarterback. Instead, let him make plays with his feet, rely on the defense, trust that defense, move the clock, and win games no matter how ugly it is. Well, to the defense's credit, the defense has been phenomenal all year, including that Texas game, by the way. People keep forgetting. Alabama had the lead in the fourth quarter against Texas, and then eventually the defense was just on the field for entirely too long. But even against Texas, 13 points going into the fourth quarter. Well, how about the last 2 weeks? You know that Ole Miss team that put up 706 yards of total offense last week against LSU? 55 points. They had 10 against Alabama when they played in Tuscaloosa. That Ole Miss offense scored 1 touchdown on the opening drive and then did not find the end zone again the rest of the game. They found it 7 separate times against LSU. Offensively for Alabama, so we just talked about the defense. Defense is really good. By the way, Dallas Turner's kind of having the year that we all expected Will Anderson to have last year. Don't know if, for those of you who are new to the show, Will Anderson was my preseason Heisman Trophy winner 2 years ago, so not this past fall, but the previous fall. Dallas Turner's kind of having that season. So the defense is awesome. But in this game specifically, I'll be blunt, I'm curious what they do with the offense. Because the offense, as I said, it is very clearly give Jalen Milroe the ball, chew up the clock, run as much as you can, and try to win games ugly. They did it a few weeks ago against Ole Miss, but then last week, to their credit, they were able to move the ball a little bit more effectively. But even in that game, this is what stood out to me. They beat Mississippi State on the road last week. They put up 40 points, okay? They put up 40 points. That's what everybody wants to talk about. But here's what you need to know about that game that I found especially interesting. They still only had 164 yards passing. Jalen Milroe with 13 pass attempts and 12 rush attempts. In other words, Jalen Milroe is essentially as much of a running back right now as he is a quarterback. And so when I look ahead to this game, I'll be blunt. I just don't know if that is how you can play against this Texas A&M defense. Now, I think there's a lot of other teams that you can play like that against. Alabama is going to play Kentucky later in the year. I think that's a good game plan for Kentucky. I think it's a good game plan for Ole Miss, for Mississippi State. But this Texas A&M team, what did I just say? They get after the quarterback. They make plays in the backfield. That does not sound conducive to a team in Alabama that doesn't have much of a vertical passing game, a deep passing game, if you will, and instead is relying on Jalen Milroe to make plays with his feet and to run the ball. And so when I look at this game, I think a couple things stand out. A&M has the home field advantage. We know how big that is in the SEC. That goes without saying. 2, beyond that, I think they have the better quarterback. Max Johnson is playing really good football right now for Texas A&M. They've scored 54 points in the last 3 halves, which is like basically, 2 touchdowns a half since he took over. That's not elite, but it's good enough. The run game is coming along really strong. And right now, Texas A&M has the more balanced offense with the run pass game. Didn't even mention it earlier. Le'Veon Moss, another guy that was part of that 2022 recruiting class. He is averaging over 100 yards rushing in the 2 SEC games so far this year. And 3, I just don't know how Alabama is going to move the ball in this game. And I'm not saying A&M wins 31-3, but I just think there are certain ways, and this feels like, to me, one of those styles make fights type games in college football, right? I think there are teams that Alabama is going to win by 3 touchdowns against. I just don't think this is the team. On the flip side, I think there's a way to beat A&M, and it's don't let all those big guys up front get in the backfield. Don't try to run the ball a million times. You have to be able to pass the ball. You have to be able to get rid of the ball quickly. I think LSU could give A&M fits later in the year. I think Ole Miss could give them fits later in the year. But on this game, on this Saturday coming up in College Station, I have an official pick, and it's only Wednesday, baby. I like Texas A&M, if you want to call it an upset, as a 2.5-point underdog at home to win outright. Give me the Aggies 27-14. I just don't think Alabama is going to be able to move the ball against this Texas A&M defense. Again, there are ways to beat A&M. I don't know if Alabama has the blueprint to do it.